let's just start the Q&A now. Great. Can I get everyone's attention really quickly? Cool. So I know we have about half an hour. You please feel free to ask any questions that you have about either one of these solutions. They're quite different. But just want to show you two very different approaches to solving this problem of Game of Life. Anyone with any initial questions about either one of these solutions? That makes sense, yeah.
The second one is so awesome. It's like so modular and cool. And we were wondering, like, if someone was to be writing that, would they just write it like that to begin with, or would they kind of adapt and like be writing it more procedurally and then be like, wow, this is a pain, I'm doing this a lot, let me abstract it into a function?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that's just whether they would move, sort of start off with something more like the first solution and move toward this, or just start here is really just a function of experience. I think that, this is something, this solution I think looks a lot like most of the instructor solutions, and I think most of us at this point can start with just a sense of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna want a getter and setter for status. That just makes sense. This is the main attribute that we're manipulating on each one of these cell objects. So let's come up with get status and set status. Get cell coordinates, that's obviously also very important functionality. So just thinking about this problem in more of like a functional programming oriented way, as opposed to more object-oriented programming, right? Because this solution is largely defined by verbs, right? We're doing this to this cell, and then we're doing that, and then this, and then that. Whereas the first solution, I think probably looks a little bit more like what you guys came up with, as more of an object-oriented solution, where you have these sort of like major functions that are large and beefy, and that are handling parts of the board, and really just the perspective is that of nouns, right? Of like, now I iterate through all these cells and apply the same thing to each one, but I'm not going to create a function, a helper function that does that attacks each cell as is. I'm just going to continue to see the board as one big object, instead of splitting it down the problem into a number of verbs that need to be happening upon that object. And don't be worried if that's not immediately intuitive to you folks. I think the more coding that you do and the more code that you read, the more you'll be able to see the distinction. And see, oh yeah, this person's clearly thinking more like in this paradigm, where it's like, okay, here I can look at this code and see that this person clearly tackled the problem with this perspective in mind. Yeah, questions?
I had a question about the enable autoplay first solution.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why in set interval do you need to pass like a wrapper function around self.step? Why couldn't you just use self.step right in there?
You're saying, let's just do this. Why are we?
Yeah, because you've already defined your this as, I get why you're doing this equals self, so you can keep track of I need to be right.
Oh, excuse me, I cannot invoke that there, right? I can pass a function reference. Yes. Yeah, this is the same thing. There's no real reason to do it otherwise. And I agree with you. I think this is clear. Like why, yeah, have an extra step of the anonymous function. Although I think in general I see that more, where most people pass the anonymous function to set interval or set timeout and then invoke the function that they actually want to deal with within. I think, yeah, I can't tell you why I see that more often, but this is the same thing.
We actually, sorry, we messed it up. We invoked the stat function within set interval, so it makes a lot of sense now. It's only one once.
Right, it's the difference between passing a function reference and actually invoking a function within a function, within a reference that you're passing, right? Because this is, let me go back. Right, this is the function reference you're passing in this situation. And it's that function that's invoking it within. Right, but whatever is passed to the set interval cannot be invoked, right? It's asking for a function reference, or a definition rather. Same thing. Yes. Yeah, follow-up question?
Yeah, follow-up question. So when you do you're setting like that whole set interval to that interval, like is that an object or?
Right, that's just a design choice. Created this dot interval property on the game. Not necessary. This is not key here.
Is that just something to keep track of so you can pass it to clear interval?
Yeah, or I guess again, it's like has more to do, I think, with the perspective of wanting to store pieces of data that are integral to the function of the board on the board itself, as opposed to treating it as like a private function. Yeah, like really just a design choice, not necessary with regards to function. Yeah.
Company had on there if it equal or type of during the enable autoplay part. Type of equals the string undefined rather than just having.
Yeah, this is supposed to be like this, right?
Yeah. Why not just do like this interval equals undefined?
Yeah, this could be more like, right, or like if. This could also easily just be this, if not this interval. If it's a falsy value, then do this. Yeah. This, we did not come up with this as this is like a student solution that I want to show you guys from like a couple cohorts ago. It works, it is not perfect code. And that's why I want to provide the other one. Also, like I think was like immediately obvious to everyone here that the other one was like a better solution, right? But like also want to provide a solution that looked maybe more like something that you guys came up with. No offense. I mean, come on, it is like getting up week 2. So, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions about this solution in particular? You just do this. Mm-hmm.
I think I'd ask the fellows the other day too. When you're doing the clear for all the cells, is it possible and maybe even better to get away with rather than traversing all the cells and making them dead, to just delete the board and remake it almost instantaneously?
I like that idea. Let's see.
I did that and it works. The only thing that would be in there is if you had like inputs for width and height. When you clear it, it would remake it also to a different size because it has to remake the board. So if unless you prompted them right in the beginning for width and height and then never asked for it again. But yeah, I ended up like, later on I just made them all dead, but originally I just wanted to see if it works where you just kill the board and remake it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly possible. Yeah, what are we doing when we create the board? We're still iterating through, right? And creating HTML elements, right? And so that's also a costly operation. Not only are we creating these rows and columns, we're also like attaching data attributes. So I would say actually to destroy and create the board is more expensive than iterating through and chasing one attribute on each one of the cell objects. Yeah.
So for my clear function, I just reloaded the page. Why is that bad?
For your clear function?
Yeah.
So how exactly did you reload the page? Okay, so you just.
I mean, it worked, but obviously it doesn't seem like.
Okay, so what happens after you? What does reload the page do? What does it trigger?
I guess it sets the source.
Right, exactly. It reinstantiates your script, and I'm guessing that everyone here at the very bottom of their script had called the create and show board function, right? And so, like, what does that function do? It recreates the board, right? So it's not bad, it's not bad to do it. It's just not ideal because it's still more costlier than just iterating through and removing these attributes, right? And it's important for us to start thinking about performance, efficiency, right? Because the more responsive, i.e. like the faster our web pages are, the more our users will enjoy being on our web pages. So we want to always take the shortest, cheapest route to our objective. I mean, I'd say that's definitely using a clear function that sets the attribute to dead as opposed to like ripping the whole thing off the DOM, painting it again. Very costly. Yeah. How do you guys, I mean, how did you folks capture the state of the board? I'm interested in that. I think that's like the most intriguing question with regards to this problem of Game of Life is how did you folks capture the status after I clicked the cells and then go through those cells and change the status depending on the logic of the game? Any inventive solutions?
So when we created the board and gave the on-click, assigned the on-cell-click function to the on-click both cells, we also assigned each cell an array of the IDs of its neighbors.
Okay.
And value alive neighbors set to 0. So every time a cell changes state, it lets all of its neighbors know that, and their alive neighbors changes accordingly. So every time we want the state of the board, we just run through and grab that value. So
Sweet. Okay, so you created a separate data structure for each cell of the board that stored its neighbors. Cool. That is an uncommon solution. I like it. Anyone else? Anyone would throw out another solution? How about this? Would anyone like to describe the solution implemented by this first version? How exactly do we capture the state of the board here? Andrew.
I think it just stores it in the HTML, right? Or I mean, at least that's what we did. I think our solution is similar to this one. Like, whenever it's interested in getting parts of the state of the board, it just like looks at the HTML and figures out what data status and class name are.
And then once it ascertains that data, how does it model that data in a particular way? Like asking following questions.
From the way you worded that, I think this is the wrong answer, but I don't think so. I think it just uses that whenever it grabs it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, it's, in this solution, it's storing the state in an array, and then it's moving through the array to see if cells dead or alive, and then switching it. So it's like an array of arrays. There's an outer array. So the first element of the outer array is the status at step 1 of the board. And then element 2 of the outer array is status at step 2, and so on.
Okay. So you're saying multi-dimensional arrays.
Yeah.
Anyone want to elaborate? You know the answer. Yeah.
What's the question? Yeah, so you're building a multi-dimensional array,
Right.
saving true.
Okay. So it's a two-dimensional array to be exact, right?
Yeah, two-dimensional array.
And what's this first array at index 0?
It's like the x, the length of or the width.
Right. Because we're going widthwise. That's our outer for loop, right?
Right?
So it's to be specific, just like one row, right? And so that's what this. And then what's stored in these rows?
So all the true false values will lie.
Right. Boolean values.
Yeah.
So this is true if it's alive, false if it's dead. So this data structure that is a result of this step function looks a lot like, what it might have here, true, true, true. I mean, obviously most of these are actually false, but this would be the first row. This would be the second row. So what this solution does is it iterates through all the cells of the board, ascertains the status of each cell, and then depending on the status, adds a true or a false value to this multi-dimensional array. Where because of the two-dimensionality of this array, we know exactly the x and y coordinates. We know what each true or false value, what cell it pertains to. And then after it captures this state, we iterate through. Does it live? This does it live function. We capture the neighbors. So this is a for loop that just goes from x minus 1 to x plus 1, getting all this surrounding the 8 cells surrounding it. And then we go to this paint board function is what invokes this does it live function. And then we assess if it's alive based on the rules that are set out in 68 down to 75, we change the status. So we capture the state of the board, we model it with Boolean values, we capture the neighbors, and we apply the values, the rules to each cell. Yeah.
We did a very similar approach, but we just instead of saving the value of an array and you save it on the cell as a property.
Okay,
Which is similar to a cluster.
yeah,
And then just move again through it when we change the class and the actual content.
okay. Okay, so you iterated through the board, you applied the rules to each cell, and then based on the outcome of those rules, you set a status, an additional piece of data to each cell.
Each cell has a property the next status. We look through the whole board, check the number of alive neighbors and determine if it will die or live.
Okay,
And you do this for each cell before you actually change the status in the second.
I see. Right,
Changing it.
right. Does anyone think it's possible to go through once, iterate through this board just one time?
We iterated through it and then created a list of the ones to change that needed to be changed, and then had a smaller array of elements that needed to be changed to different.
Okay, so you iterated through it once, and then what?
Created a created a separate array that listed only the ones that needed to be changed if they were on or alive to dead or dead to alive.
Okay, so you iterate through, and then you sort of marked the cells that were relevant, and then you just iterated through a subset of that when applying the rules. Okay, but does anyone think it's possible to just iterate through just once?
I guess if you had two arrays, I don't know if that counts as better, but like you could just make a new array, iterate through once to push that output onto the new array, and then replace the new one with the old one.
I think with what you're saying, that we'd still need
The computation
Yeah.
expense is probably
two for loops, yeah. Or like rather two versions of the two for loops, like 4 for loops. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if this like is the best way to do it, but I was thinking you could create like a string and actually create HTML for this new state on the fly, and then swap the actual HTML with the. Is that making any sense?
I think you would run into major problems there, right? Because you'd be
Would you?
changing the cells before you ascertain. So you would like reach a cell that's like alive maybe.
Yeah.
Apply the rules to it, say, okay, this one needs to die. And if you were to change that before you got to the other cells, you
Oh
would
yeah, but I'm
change it.
saying, okay, so what I'm saying is you're not changing anything on the original table. You're iterating through the original table, but while you're doing that, you're creating a new table, just like a string,
Mhm.
like
Okay.
in JavaScript, where you're adding the HTML values as you go, but you're not changing anything on the original table. And then once you get to the end, you literally just delete all the HTML from the old table, and then you just add the HTML for the new table.
But you still run into that problem because if you're creating the new table as you go, that means you're inevitably changing some of the cells before you've assessed other cells in their states. So you're changing their states based on the first attempt to correct it, to get to the new board. So you're in the middle of like, you're starting to create the new board, but you still got the old board down here.
Yeah.
And so by changing the old board to the new board up here, you're affecting how these cells will be changed.
I think he's saying wait until you finish the entire for loop and then push the new
Yeah.
table and take the old one off. So you're not changing as you go. You're just creating a new table. You finish with the for loop, delete the old table, new table in. So you're not changing as you go. You're just
So the calculations for the new string are always based on the old table.
Exactly.
I see. But you're still going along. So you're still creating the new board, I'm guessing, before you've captured the state of the old board. It's this sort
the
of,
old board's still there. He's saying don't replace the old board until.
right,
You could capture the state.
But it doesn't
But
say
you still have to-
anything over different areas, there's twice.
right. But you still have to create the new board only once you've assessed the state of the old board, right?
Yeah, so he's saying do it as a string and then at the end of the for loop, instead of having it as a string, make it the HTML.
Maybe the way they're assessing it is for each cell, they're iterating through all the neighbors and then this cell.
Yeah.
Okay. Go through all the neighbors first. And then,
So you don't have to assess the bottom of the board to know the state.
Okay, so let's really quickly then pull up. So I actually really want to understand this. Let's see.
Don't know if it's.
File open.
Yeah.
Oops. All right, so check it. Okay, so I'm iterating through this board, and I capture this cell. I arrive right here. Anyway, is this big enough? Yeah, I arrive right here. And so I'm gonna stop here, I'm gonna iterate through the neighbors. I'm gonna figure out if this cell needs to be changed. And then once I figure out if it needs to be changed or what has to happen with this cell, I'm going to create a new board, is what you're saying. I have a new board ready. I'm going to I'm going to change that cell accordingly.
Yeah, essentially. But the new board is just like a string of HTML, right? And you're just adding cells. Like, so once you get to that point, you already have like, you know, however many like dead cells beforehand. Like you wouldn't start when you got to that. You start at, you know, the top left, and then you'd be adding.
Okay, and you're going back through. I see. I think that yes, and okay, so and you're using HTML strings in order to avoid having to iterate through the new board.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
So I think it works, but it's not.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah. I'm still
ideal.
assessing what like the big O notation of that solution would be. But yeah, I like it. It's creative. Yeah, and I think theoretically it could work. But it still is going to be like an n cubed solution, I think at the very least. Actually, perhaps more if we really take into account the just-in-time optimizations of the compiler when it renders those strings. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
And maybe just another way to think about the solution is originally you loop once through the whole board and store the next state in an array, for example. Then you have to loop again to kind of paint it to change the state. But with Sean's solution, instead of having to loop to paint like it's paint system, it's just replaced by deleting HTML and inserting the string.
Right.
So it's that's why it's the same result.
Concatenating strings.
But
Yeah.
it's faster because you only have to delete a string and insert a string instead of actually.
Yeah.
It's faster.
Yeah. I'm not confident that it is, but I like it because it's clever. Yeah. Last question.
Just to say, we would keep the whole board once and then store the cell by dependency and object as the key, and then I can array those cell status and numbers on the
Okay, so you mapped.
neighbors,
You use an object to store the state.
yeah. And then after that, we each cell the object and then change it to that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone have an idea of what would be faster if we stored it in an object versus like an array, like a multi-dimensional array?
Guessing the multi-dimensional array, just because you don't have to build like a hash table, in that the compiler doesn't have to build a hash table to store it. It's more comfortable with an array.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Yeah, it's right. Well, the compiler's already doing a number of things under the hood for us when we, create arrays. A linked list might be created. Yes, with objects, a hash table is being created on the hood, but we remember that accessing data from the hash table is constant time, right? That query. Whereas with an array, it's end time because of the length of the array. And if it's nested, there's a nested iteration, then it's n squared. But these are not, this is not a problem for which you should be thinking about the relative efficiency of like arrays versus objects. Just want to like check in on your retention of last week's material. Cool. So we have 4 minutes left. I want to give you guys a bit of a break before we get into node asynchronicity. If you folks have any other questions about these solutions, you review them this evening, please feel free to Slack me. And if I get a number of questions, I can hold like a Q&A, another Q&A session. I know we only had half an hour to go through them, but I hope that you guys feel like you learned a lot. I think all of you folks finished, so that's great. And just really want the main takeaway to be like states. And of course, like this, I think I walked around and talked to just about every team about how to set up this for the right reference. So great, you guys are free. Take like 3 minutes to walk around and stretch, and then please return promptly at like noon 01 for node asynchronicity.
You were saying there was a solution with just 2 for loops.
No, but
How
I like
would you do it? By just, is there a way to solve it? Just looping
Yeah,
through.
it's like one
once.
Oh no, I was claiming that it didn't exist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I thought-
yeah. Clarification there. Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
So